Welcome to the final episode of our Cyber Finance GRC series. And this has been an interesting and eye opening experience for both Colin Nelson and myself. No doubt he also has his own share of experience that he will be sharing with us as it relates to this journey that you have actually undertaken over the past few weeks. And the as it relates to, my main focus was on you, our audience, and the impact that this series will have on your career. And we will definitely be diving into a number of areas as it relates to putting all that you have actually learned so far within this Jersey series, finance series, and looking at the fact that having that knowledge, having that understanding of being able to communicate regardless of your role within an organization. From a cybersecurity perspective, being able to um, communicate with the executives, the management in terms from a financial perspective is quite important in terms of gaining their support as it relates to the various cybersecurity initiatives that are launched within an organization. So, guys, we definitely enjoy this series, and definitely we hope that you have also garnered a number of insights that can actually add value to your personal development. So, before we actually get right into the details of today's objectives, let me remind you of some of the things that we have actually covered so far in the series. And if this is the first time that you're actually joining, then there is no need for you to worry about all the things that you have actually missed within the series. So far we have actually covered a number of elements as it relates to cybersecurity finance calculations, and all of this information can be found on the Cyber JA YouTube channel. All the series are actually recorded there that you can actually access all this amazing resource to add value to um, your cybersecurity initiative from a financial perspective. So let me quickly share my screen so have exactly an understanding of some of the things that we have actually covered so far within this series. Okay, great. So what you're looking at is actual Cyber Finance GRC series roadmap. That's our roadmap that we have actually been exploring over the past few weeks. And within week one, the very first week, we actually um, covered a number of things. As it relates to our main objectives of this series, so far, the main objective we looked at is to help cybersecurity professionals with understanding the importance of being able to communicate cyber in business terms to the executives through the use of practical exercises that involve the application of financial calculations to justify the need for various cybersecurity decisions that require financing. And our very first week, we covered a number of areas as it relates to security financing. So we look at those various case scenarios that involve the application of financial calculation, financial terms, introduction to risk communication, and also the four main things that executives want to know from their cybersecurity leaders. And in week two, we covered a number of six um, objectives. We looked at, what is cybersecurity finance, the importance of having an understanding of finance as it relates to cybersecurity. We also went into cyber finance when communicating with executives, that introduction to the math formulas associated with cyber finance, and also looking at those various case scenarios. Moving on to week three, we covered various frameworks that are used for managing cybersecurity finance within an organization and also the key concepts and principles of cybersecurity finance, not to mention the various case scenarios, because that is where our main focus was in terms of looking at all of those various case scenarios that are involved in executing cybersecurity finance. So, as I already
Richie, I
mentioned,
think you have a question.
oh,
You have a question on the LinkedIn. Just someone is asking, are the other weeks available for viewing? So maybe you want to touch that already.
oh yes. Are there other weeks of? Oh yes, sure. Which I already mentioned. So once you go to the Cyber JA YouTube channel, then all the series are actually listed there. So you can always go back and watch all of those series. I mean, from week one. So for sure. And if you are not, I mean, finding the the links, then you can always DM myself or Colin, and we'll be happy to share all the necessary resources with you as it relates to all the information that you have covered so far within this series. Right? So those are all the various elements that we have actually dived into over the past 3 weeks, and it was indeed a wonderful experience for us. We also looked at a number of formulas as it relates to cyber finance formulas. We covered there's so many things that you have actually looked into: return on investment, the total cost of ownership, um, cost of a data breach, risk exposure factor, annual loss expectancy. So these are a number of formulas, a number of calculations involving cyber finance that can be very helpful for you as a professional within the cybersecurity or GRC space that you have actually dived into. And as I mentioned earlier, all this information is will be made accessible for you that actually take that time to invest in terms of building your skill set. That's the main aim of doing this, is for you to be able to take this information and apply it within your organization to be able to create and build that case for management support from a financial perspective within the organization. So, guys, this is something that I believe is very vital, very important going forward as cybersecurity professionals within the industry. So often we are so focused on what is my current role at my desk. It's all about implementing the various tools, the controls, the standards, the various control measures within the organization, the firewalls, but not understanding the overall objective, the overall business focus, the overall drive of the organization is where at times many of us as cybersecurity professionals actually lack that deep understanding in terms of being able to present and to justify why it is that we do what we do, why it is that we need your support. And once you have that understanding, being able to align from a financial perspective why it is that, for example, in a typical case, being able to calculate the cost of a data breach and being able to present that information to senior management says a lot about you. It makes a difference that you're actually thinking holistically about the business, the organization. So it's not about zeros and ones, bits and bytes, right? So very important. So over the past few weeks, we have actually dived into so many things, and it's very important that we actually have that feedback from persons in terms of what it is that they have actually learned from this. And to joining us at this point in time, we have a guest, one of our viewers, participants, and it's Patrick SN. Patrick, nice having you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you live. Patrick, let us know if you're actually hearing us.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. So welcome, Patrick.
Oh, okay.
And with me,
All right.
we have Colin Nelson. Colin, Patrick.
Hello, Collins. How you doing? It's good to be here. Thank you, Richie, for having me.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for making our time to attend our event.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. I've been at least I've followed a couple of the series, and I find it to be very enlightening and insightful. So I've learned a thing or two. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. And we are definitely grateful at the fact that you have actually taken the time to join us in terms of providing that feedback, in terms of the value that you would have actually garnered from this experience so far. So, can you, share with us in terms of a little bit about yourself and also, very importantly, um, the insights, what you have actually gained from this? Possibly what it is that you're looking forward for in the future as it relates to the importance of what it is that we're actually trying to bring across from this series.
Okay, Richie, thank you. Yeah, actually, the first thing that strike me is being able to as cybersecurity professionals, being able to when you're trying to explain to management in terms of maybe you're trying to get resources in order to implement whatever security strategies that you want to put in place in order to protect the organization. Normally we don't tend to think about the financial aspect of it. We just present our proposal, probably put a cost estimation, and then you have maybe some persons that don't understand the reason why you need that kind of budget, tend to want to cut it down. So, but following the series, the episode where Collins was trying to break things down, I learned how to be able to, when you put out this let's say proposal, for funding, how to be able to break it down to management in the best possible, like we say, like in a layman's term, for them to be able to understand. Okay, if we need to put this system or this devices in place, this is what we should expect, and this is how it's going to protect us.
Awesome. And yeah, and those are very, important points. And Colin, what's your take? Do you have any, questions for, Patrick?
I'm really just excited that the message was driven home in a more effective manner, and that we are happy that we have someone who can testify that he has identified the need and the
Yeah.
relevance of this focus, and he's ready to implement into the business. So it goes where to say that yes, the community has been impacted, and the journey that we have started is off to a good finish.
Great.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Patrick, what's your take in terms? What is it that you would like to see? Going forward in terms of as we look at cyber finance. Series.
Well, I think we should get more people involved, more people, because for me, this is the first time I'm actually engaging. Because initially, when I joined the session, I was trying to see what aspect of GRC, since it's the GRC aspect of things. So I was trying to see how does it work in the GRC aspect of things. So I'd like to see more collaboration between people on the offensive, on the defensive side, collaborating with the GRC side to be able to drive home, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to protect networks, we're all trying to protect our organization. So we should collaborate more, to be able to understand how it works on the other side.
Yeah, that's a great point. What's your take on that, Colin?
When he was saying it, he knows I was just nodding my head, and that's really, really a good strategy. Although myself and you, we've had experience from the operation perspective, and now we find ourselves in the GRC. But it would be good to have someone who's currently in that space now, where we can have a more insightful conversation. The person will bring the communication from his own hands-on experience as it applies in the industry right now, and we would bring our own idea and strategy in terms of how we can be able to apply the economics and all that to it, and of course kind of have a more insightful conversation. So I think I tilt towards Patrick's suggestion, and not to forget that we talked about this is not just the end, this is just an end of a particular episode, and we would definitely now look at how to have more encompassing topics to discuss in the near future.
Great. And guys, the very important is the fact that the invitation is actually open for just about the entire community. The story behind this is that Colin and I actually had a conversation on the Cyber podcast. That's where I actually met Colin. And it actually
Okay.
went into this, showing you guys the power of networking, the power of building relationships. These are the platforms, these are the avenues in which you are able to excel, you are able to grow in terms of developing your skill set. So wherever your skill lies, I mean, DMOS, we are open to persons who are willing to contribute, to learn, to make this. We have a very big dream for this to actually make it go into something that is very accessible in terms of that repository that persons can actually go towards to learn from a financial perspective. So it is open, guys. Feel free to DM us to suggest topics, to suggest wherever it is that you want to contribute, to work with us, so that we can actually plan to make this thing as effective as best as possible moving forward. So, Patrick, if there are no further words from you at this point, then it was indeed a pleasure having you, and for sure we will definitely take your feedback into consideration. I mean, as we actually transition into the final points of this series and actually have that further conversation. So it was indeed a great experience. I mean, having this conversation with you.
I really
Okay,
appreciate
great. So
the time you guys use in putting it together. Thank you very much for having me.
awesome, great.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, great. So, all right. So, guys, there you have um, one of our, I mean, someone from the audience that actually took the invitation to provide their feedback in the series that we have been having so far. And to conclude this series, looking at the cyber finance GRC series, then we are going to be looking at something very important. And the fact is that all that we have been doing so far is to help you to understand, to be able to create the case scenarios, being able to carry out the various research, being able to do the various calculations so that you can actually present the necessary facts, the necessary financial information that the executives are looking for to provide us with the support from a financial perspective. So we're going to be let me quickly just bring this in focus. So on screen, we are going to be looking at the final episode, and that's week 4, right? And week 4, we are going to be looking at how to make a business case for cybersecurity. That's what we're going to be focusing. How it is that we actually make that business case for cybersecurity, and all of this involves a process, and that is what we're going to be focusing on for the remainder of this session. So, Colin, as it relates to making a business case, building that business case, over the past week we have looked into so many areas. What's your take, or what's your understanding when we talk about making a business case or building that business case for cybersecurity? We are not hearing you, Colin.
I muted myself, so thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. Before I deep dive into the conversation, just want to ask you, Richie, are you getting ready for summer? Because it's pretty hot here. It's already summer here, so are you getting ready?
Tell me about it, my friend. I'm experiencing.
I think we need to take a time off after this, and then get some rest and come back. Okay, so Richard, the idea behind a business case is basically, I would say that it's centered around decision making. So it's a decision making process, or we will look at it from, let's say, it's a decision making rationale, where you try to uh, find a justification to evaluate and weigh possibly the benefits, the costs, and risk of a preferred solution against a particular alternative. So that's the idea. So you're trying to, consider what factors would influence you choosing a particular solution between two solutions in the market. How would you make a decision to say this is more preferred one compared to a different one. So the idea is that you want this particular solution in your organization. You're proposing this. How do you start from start to finish? How do you create a justification? How do you select the project team? What entails the entire chain, the entire circle from start to finish, to be able to profile or make a select a particular tool in the market. So all that we have been discussing so far, so we're now trying to put everything together. So sometimes you also would consider maybe the complexity of the problem you're at hand. Also, you want to consider maybe what opportunity is driving the entire decision that you're trying to make. So the idea behind building a business case is trying to see what rationale, how would you create the situation, how would you model a picture, present to your management, and while doing that also you are able to make a prediction or also provide a solution. So the idea is not just seeing a problem but also providing a solution to the problem that you have identified. So basically this is the whole idea, and I think that's what we're trying to do, and we're going to start that and hopefully finish it in the conversation today.
Awesome. And I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation. We're definitely looking forward to sharing this process with you. And this is a learning exercise for all of us. I mean, we are not the most knowledgeable individuals. I mean, we took the time to do the necessary research so that we are able to garner the necessary skills that can also be of value to us in terms of being that those subject matter experts within our organizations, so that when we communicate, when we bring across the necessary information to senior management, then they recognize that we are serious about the organization, we are serious about the business, and we are not just about um, focusing on the task at our desk, getting into the job, but we also have that holistic approach to what it is that we do and being able to gain the support with every single initiative within that organization. So the fact is that when you talk about building that business case, in addition to what Colin has actually mentioned, this involves a particular process. There are certain things that needs to be done in order to build that effective case. And very importantly is that there is also a framework. There is an acceptable standard or framework that can be used, that has been established by leading industry. There's a leading organization that actually developed this particular framework, this mechanism that can be employed, that can be used for you to actually develop a business case for cybersecurity financing within your organization. And that is what we're going to be um, sharing with you. And very importantly, is making that alignment with this process and also tying in that with the various financial, I mean, calculations were applicable during this process. So let me quickly share this with you for you to get an understanding of what it is that we're actually referring to at this point. Okay, great. So what you are looking at the moment is a process, right? This is a framework or a process or a system, if you want to see it that way, that has been developed by CISO, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I strongly recommend that you take the time to do further research on this document. It's freely available, that you can actually look into all the necessary details associated with actually building a case for security within an organization. So, Colin, this is something that involves a number of processes. We are talking about establishing security, your security project team, conducting your risk assessment, developing your benefit cost analysis, anticipating potential resistant factors, developing implementation plan, schedule, and performance criteria, as well as developing and delivering recommendations. So it's actually a six-phase process. So when we talk about establishing security project team, what does this actually entail?
Okay, so Richie, thank you so much for that question. It's good that we reemphasize that we're using an industry framework. And again, the idea behind this framework is that we're trying to see how to teach you to build a decision or create a decision making process throughout. Maybe you're trying to select a tool. Now, talking about establishing a security project team. Now, this is very, very critical to the entire process. Now, the team you're looking at is basically you're trying to see how to select the right people. So this is a critical first step in building a successful business case. Now, this team will now be responsible maybe for creating a charter for endorsement by the leadership team, and also we're looking at a combination of different people. For example, people from the physical security, information technology, looking at people from the human resource, maybe legal team. So the entire team will be responsible for driving the security initiative and ensuring collaboration between different teams. So that's why it's critical, because the success of the project or the success of that business case you're trying to create would rest on that particular team that you are able to establish. So it's very important that you select the right people, select people that are team players, and select people that would buy into the vision of that particular project that you're trying to work on. So that's the whole idea around establishing the right security. I'll put it the right security team for the project. Now, moving forward, Richie, I think it will be really relevant that we talk about the impact of conducting a risk assessment while trying to build a business case. Would you mind maybe sharing an idea on how this works?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So the security, this is where you actually have, bearing in mind that this is actually a team effort, right? So at this point, then you will review your organization's current security posture, right? So this is after you would have, as it states, establish your security project team. So once you have all of the necessary individuals a part of your team, depending on the size of the organization, and this is where your risk assessment comes in. And this is where you look at or you review your current or the organization's current security state and conduct your risk assessment. And this is done to better understand the organization or risk. And when you talk about the organization or risk, you're looking at your threats, your vulnerabilities, and the consequences. And it also involves a lot of documentation and in terms of looking at the assessment results. And very importantly to note is that your ability within this team to prioritize these risks, identify those risks that are relatively higher, and to be able to communicate the lowering or risk as a result of the security recommendation is critical to the business case for security. So it's all about conducting a risk your team. I mean, doing a comprehensive risk assessment to identify the potential cybersecurity threats and vulnerabilities. And in addition to this, then you're also required to develop your cost benefit analysis. And in the past week, I've actually done a number of calculations. So Colin will also shed some more light on this as well as part of the process.
Yeah, that's true. Developing a benefit cost analysis is actually also a very, very important step after you must have established the security project team. You have conducted your risk-based assessment. So the next thing that you want to do is that the project team, that's you and your team, would want to create what is called the benefit cost analysis. Now, here, what you try to do is you try to determine the potential impact of that particular security breach on your organization. Now you want to see compare it against the how much it would cost you to implement a particular security measure. Now you one thing you do is you evaluate the reputational damage. For instance, if part of what is not even part, that's some of the things that you're supposed to face. You look at the financial impacts of the particular breach, and also you look at things like regulations and cost of informing the customers and all that, just like we have talked about already. So you look at all these factors, try to now measure them with how much would it have cost you to have a particular tool in place. Now, some of the things that you will need to consider while trying to, build a benefit cost analysis, you want to consider things like you will try to describe the security project. Now, based on the risk assessment that you have conducted, you and your team should be able to develop maybe a description of the security project. Now, after you have done that, you will need to find a way to clearly communicate the business impact. What would happen to the business if you fall short of that particular attack? and what would happen to the business if you have this particular tool in place. Now, after you must have done that, another thing that you want to consider, still on that cost benefit analysis, you want to consider, are there alternative tools out there? What could be an alternative investment that you have? So, are they, for instance, you have to A to B, can you achieve the same result with 2A? Where when so let's assume 2A is $5 and 2B is $2. Can you be able to achieve the same results using 2B? So those are the factors that you have to want to consider. What alternatives are there in the market to that particular solution that you're trying to profile? Now, after doing all that, you put all that together to be able to create your benefit cost analysis. I think that's the step on that. And another factor is that you will need to anticipate potential resistance factor. Richie, please, can you shed more light on that?
Yes, that's also very important, a very important element of the overall process. And very importantly, guys, is the fact that we are giving you just an eye level of all that is involved in this process. And also, we are going to be looking at the actual application of the process to a case scenario. So this is just at an eye level in terms of, as I'd mentioned, very important before, is that this is a document that you will definitely want to take and to read in depth to get all the context of this document and the importance of the document. So in addition to the process, which I've mentioned, Colin, is anticipating potential resistance factors to your initiatives. So this is something that you have to take into consideration. So recognizing the importance of your stakeholder buy-in, the security project team, the team that you are a part of, would definitely need to anticipate the potential resistance factors in implementing cybersecurity measures in an organization. So you have to proactively engage with different departments. I mean, addressing the concerns and highlighting the potential benefits that can enhance the security, and to ensure that you also have open communication channels and conducting the necessary training sessions to increase that awareness as it relates to the culture of the organization, what it is that you're trying to achieve. Right? So those are things that you definitely will have to take into consideration and plan for these things, incorporating these things within your your initiative in terms of making that proposal. All right, looking at the various costs, all of these things. Right. So, and in addition to all of this, you also will have to look at developing that implementation plan, the schedule, and also the performance criteria for this overall process. Colin, can you share?
Yeah. So that's absolutely correct. It's very important that you build an implementation plan where you basically try to describe how your organization would execute the security investment strategy. Here, you try to break down the strategy into identifiable steps. Again, you try to assign tasks to different people involved in the project. Also, you would need to consider how to create a project schedule where you define milestones and metrics to measure the success of that particular project. And also, you need to plan to include detailed description of the resources that you would need, and as well on how you tend to communicate this whole plan to your management, how you tend to roll out this project, and how it would impact the organization, including the employees and stakeholders. Now, your team would of course need to develop a detailed, like talked about, the plan has to be very, very detailed, where you try to outline the specific security measures to be implemented. Things like maybe network segmentation, you're looking at maybe things like data encryption, intrusion detection systems, all of that. So you need to work on how to do that. And then now talking about performance criteria, you need to look at things like how do you reduce the number of security incidences? How do you measure the effectiveness of the security strategy that you're trying to introduce? So things like response time, maybe you're trying to improve the response time to incidences. Are they part of, is it what your strategy is all about? You try to measure the effectiveness of your controls or effectiveness of your different security tools. So that's the whole idea around developing an implementation plan, creating a schedule, and also try to build a performance metrics, because it's very important. At the end of the day, you have to be able to show how you would measure the effectiveness of this particular solution you're trying to propose, doing that through this business case that you're trying to build for the organization. And another very important thing is to consider how to develop and deliver some recommendations to the organization. And I think Richie would want to, help us understand that better.
Yes, first, that's for also very important. And this is the final step of the process where you actually, in this final process, step, you conduct the necessary research, the analysis, and recommendations, and which can also be transformed into a presentable business case. All right. So this is where you actually start using the organization's preferred presentation format. The business case for security should start with your the bottom line, right? So that's the bottom line upfront to orient the decision maker on the key information they are expected to decide on, and also to follow with the security project in terms of the description, the business impact analysis, um, of the alternative, the cost and benefits, the implementation plan, also your schedule, your recommendation. And this is where the presentation should include your visuals, your data charts, all the necessary things that can also be used to bring across and to captivate and to make that case. So when your senior executives, your senior management see the delivery that you make, they recognize that you have actually done a thorough research and you're not just fluffing or just grabbing figures um, from what they would say thin here, but you have actually done the necessary research to substantiate or to justify what it is that you are proposing to gain their support moving forward. With that said, then the important thing at this point is, or the question is, how do we actually apply this process, this six-stage or six-step process recommended by CISA to creating a business case? And what we're going to be doing is actually sharing walking through a case scenario at a high level for you to actually see that relationship of actually making that business case to be presented to the executives to gain their support, um, their buy-in for our cybersecurity initiatives within the organization. So to get started, let me Boone and I will be collaborating on this career, working through this process. So we're going to be working on, right? So that's our workspace that we're going to be doing our collaboration, just to bring across the point. And hopefully you grasp the concepts, the idea, what it is that we are trying to do. And for sure, we always recommend, you can always go back to at a slower pace, look at all the details, and for sure, conduct further research. Feel free to reach out to us for any additional resources that you need to better understand all that is being presented. Right? It's all about creating that awareness for you to say, okay, I can take this into consideration. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to research. These are the resources that are available to help in conducting these various initiatives. So, with that said, Colin, would you like to start the case scenario?
Oh, okay, thank you so much, Richie. Just to re-emphasize that we are now trying to build a case scenario, now putting into practice this entire six process that we have we discussed on a high-level view, talking about establishing the security project team, conducting risk assessment, how to develop business cost analysis, and all through to the last stage. So now let's look at a hypothetical situation. Let's now say that we're dealing with a financial institution. This financial institution, maybe the CISO, the chief security officer, wants to make a proposition, or let's even take it down a bit. Say maybe the next maybe let's say the physical security team or someone wants to request for some tool, and they're trying to build a case to be able to present to the management. Now we're going to look at the situation. So first, the first step is what to establish a security project team. Now, when you're trying to establish a team, a cost would come to it. There will be a budget to that step. Now, this budget can come in terms of personal costs. Let's assume that you're using a third party. You're trying to hire an expertise. outside the organization to partake in this step. A cost is going to be attached to it. Also, let's assume that the team that you're trying to set up, you need them to have some level of training, some level of expertise. You need to train them, and that would come with a cost. And also, let's say that for some organizations, if you're utilizing resources from a different team, it would come with a cost. So let's put all that together and say that the cost to establish the security project team would cost us about a budget of $200,000. So I'm just going to put that on the screen. Okay, so again, just to reemphasize, the first step for in the system framework, let me call it a framework, is that you need to establish a security project team. And now, based on this case that we have talked about, we have figured out that it's going to cost us about $200,000 to set up this team, and that can be made up of training, expertise, and all of that. So, Richie, can you help us to maybe
Sure.
describe a bit how risk assessment can be conducted?
Sure. So continuing on the using that same framework or that same six-step process, then the next step within that phase is to conduct your risk assessment. And during the risk assessment, then the team identifies your potential vulnerabilities, such as your outdated software, the lack of employee awareness, and inadequate firewall protection. And based on the research, then it's estimated that the potential financial impact of a cybersecurity breach is estimated to be 2 million based on the research that your team would have conducted. So considering factors such as customers compensation, legal fees, and reputation damage. So all the necessary research calculation in terms of coming together with this would have been done with your team with all the necessary expertise based on the various calculations that you have done in the previous series. So the risk assessment, we talk about conducting risk, which is the second phase then. And bear in mind, guys, we are actually building the business case in terms of putting all the necessary information together for the business case. Let me quickly. That is actually using a collaboration tool. So at times, okay, there we have it. There might be a delay in actually, right? So that's the next phase of the process. So followed that phase is actually developing that cost benefits analysis. Can you like to share that information?
Okay, so now after you must have conducted, your team must have, or the team, the hypothetical situation, the team has conducted a risk assessment. Now, based on the next step again is to develop a benefit cost analysis. Now, since we're looking at a hypothetical situation, this particular team have performed their cost-based analysis. They've done their calculations and all the costs associated with implementing security measures. So let's say, for example, these activities involve things like upgrading the software and hardware infrastructure, and also try to maybe let's look at training employees and also the cost of hiring a third-party consultant. So I'm just going to put this value here. Now they have been able to conduct this cost-benefit analysis, and they have figured out that it's actually beneficial. That means that the cost of having these two outweighs uh, whatever potential breach that may happen in the future. So if we attach a value, so let's say that they have estimated that sorry, they've estimated that the total cost is going to be cost of infrastructure upgrade, like we talked about. Let's assume it may be software or hardware update. Also, the possibility of training employees, and of course, they may be using the service of a third party. So, putting all that together, they're looking at the cost of about around $650,000. So, they are predicting that this tool or this step is beneficial because the cost of the security breach would be higher than this particular amount of money that they are trying to invest in their team while maybe trying to protect the system. So we would agree now that the cost benefit analysis is profitable to the organization. Richard, would you mind helping us to talk about anticipating potential resistant factors that they may encounter?
Sure. So at this point, I mean, still following our six steps, the team your team, whichever team you're working in at that point, would anticipate the resistance from various departments to concerns over budget allocation and potential disruptions to existing processes. So, to address this problem, they estimate additional training, and this happens in many cases in organizations. That additional training and awareness is always resistance. So, you have to make that allocation for this situation. Training and awareness programs, that's an estimate of $30,000, while allocating an extra 50,000 for potential processes, adjustments, and employee support. So, to add to this calculation, then we would add this information to the calculation, right? Let's hang on a little bit, guys. Sometimes there is a delay. Our collaboration tool. Um, okay, so just waiting for the information to appear on our workspace. So in light of that, the next important element of this process is actually developing the station plan, schedule, and performance criteria. So, Colin, can you shed light on this as well?
Yes, just a minute, please. My system is slowing down a bit, so just give me a minute to get it up a bit. Okay, so I think the next thing that would happen is try to develop an implementation plan, and also looking at creating a schedule. And of course, try to build a performance metrics. How do you measure the situation? Now, the team have, again, we're looking at a hypothetical situation. Your team now has developed a detailed implementation plan, and you have given it a time frame or timeline of 6 months. Now, you have estimated that the cost of implementing the security measures, including like what we talked about, infrastructure upgrade and training program, of course, hiring a third-party organization. We have agreed that it was going to cost about $650,000. That's what we have there in terms of the when defining the benefit. And also now, to talk about the performance criteria, they have defined things like such as reducing the number of security incidences by 50%. So what it means is that you're predicting that if you implement this tool, you implement the solution, that you are able to drop the number of security incidences by 50% within the first year of achieving maybe a 95% employee compliance. So a lot of factors now implement affecting the success of this tool. You need the money to be approved. You need 95% compliance from employees, because of course you know that at the end of the day, if you have these tools and the people who are meant to use these tools and comply with it, you still have possible risk. So now you are predicting that with all these mechanics, with all these tools in place and all that, you'll be able to achieve 50% reduction in security incidences if and only if employees comply with the situation, and you're expecting up to 95% compliance. So we would put that to say uh, we put out to say that to develop your implementation plan and all that, you're looking at a cost of around 650, which of course is the total cost of implementing the entire security measures, as we have illustrated or calculated in the third step above. Okay, so Richie, would you help us to discuss about developing and delivering recommendations?
Okay, great. So that is the last stage of the overall process in terms of looking at initial investment for implementing security measures. So it's at that point the team would have actually taken into consideration all the necessary costs for us or the previous stages that you have just identified on screen, looking at all those various costing, and then come up with that initial investment. In this case, they are estimating that the overall investment is the initial investment is for developing and deliver recommendation is $650,000, and the potential financial losses without security measures is equal to your potential impact and the losses which is an overall $2 million. So let me quickly add this to the calculation. Okay, great. So, guys, for the interest of time, the fact that we're using a collaboration tool, let me quickly share with you um, for you to better all that is actually on screen. I think this might be a good idea, Colin, to actually place. I think there's a delay with the collaboration application. Okay, all right, no worries. So guys, we are going to be just sharing with you all the necessary insights, all the background, all the details as it relates to what it is that we have on screen for you to have a better understanding in terms of what is displayed there. So based on the calculations, then can be made to proceed with implementing the recommended security measures. That's the overall aim of doing all of, and the estimated financial benefit of 1.35 million out to initial investment of $650,000 is presented. Therefore, the potential financial without security measures amounts to $2 million. That's the potential losses, reinforcing the importance of investing in security. Therefore, there is going to be an additional cost of $80,000, which addresses the potential resistance factors and help ensure smooth implementation process. Implementation plan and performance criteria guide the execution of the security measures, aiming to reduce security incidents and achieve high employee compliance rates within the organizations. So overall, financial analysis supports the decision to invest in cybersecurity as a proactive measure to mitigate potential financial losses, safeguarding the organization assets and foster long-term cost savings and customer trust. So, with all this information in mind, being able to deliver this information, bring this across to the executives in this way, putting together team doing various calculations, then you are now at the point where you can actually build that decision, make that decision from the case itself. So, guys, Colin, you speak more in terms of the decisions that can actually be gained from this
So when
in
talking
this
about
role.
the decisions that when talking about the decisions that can be made from the calculations you provided, I mean, a lot of we could see a lot of key indicators that would really help enforce the decisions. One of that is the benefit cost analysis. We can see that show that the potential benefit of implementing that particular security measures outweighs the costs. So in terms of saying that. If it's going to cost the organization, if the organization is going to spend, for instance, $1 billion to respond to the cyber attack, but now it's going to just cost them about 650,000 to have a measure in place. You look at it and you agree that the cost benefit analysis is on the profit side to the organization. So therefore, you would of course tilt towards or the management seeing this description or seeing this measures, this metrics, this illustrations, would see that okay, it's well beneficial for them to invest into it. Another thing we want to look at is the potential financial impact of a security breach. Now, of course, there are different estimates. Now, this highlights the potential financial losses the business could face if proper security measures are not implemented. So through this tool, where through this analysis or through this business case, we're able to clearly show the management that this is the big picture of the potential financial impact that we as an organization is liable to face if we don't implement this tool or if we don't have this solution. Again, don't forget that we're not just even just looking at the monetary term. We're looking at the reputational damage. We're looking at the downtime the business would face. So all of these are factors that would enforce or help you to sell the tool that you're trying to sell to organization. Again, you look at it, another thing that we can also try to look at from this whole conversation is the initial investment required to implement the tool. It's not going to be something that is, for instance, it may not be a renewable tool. Maybe the renewal can come in terms of license and all that, which would only come maybe at a fraction of the initial cost. If you put all of that together, that may not even amount to how much or what damage that your organization would face through if the particular cyber attack happens. So we will say that based on all these findings, that of course your management will be able to make a decision to say that okay, this tool or this solution that you're providing to us, we can see the relevance, we can see the importance, and they will be able to agree, of course, to make approvals for you and help you provide the necessary fundings that you need to, of course, launch that particular fancy tool, like Richard would call it, that you've been able to wanting to implement in your organization. So I think I would say these are some of the benefits, or the decision points based on all these factors, because of all this consideration that can be made. We looked at each of them and we can see that they are all geared towards helping the management to make a more informed decision because they are able to see the number, they're able to see the big picture, and they also see, very important, the risk that are associated to these activities. And again, seeing the benefits if we have the right tool in place. So I think that putting all this together, that you have a case to sell and you have a very vivid illustration that would help you enforce approvals for your request.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with all that you have said, Colin. So, guys, here we have a six developed by CISA, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, in terms of how it is that you can actually build a case for security within an organization. Just to reinforce points, you have to establish your security project team, you have to conduct the necessary risk assessment, you have to develop your cost benefit analysis, that's very important, anticipating the potential resistance factors from various persons within the organizations, developing your implementation plan, the schedule and performance criteria, looking at developing and also delivering the recommendations. So when you take that time, that initiative to get all of these elements together in a presentable manner, and you go before the executives, they will say that you are someone who is well prepared, you have done your research, you're all about business. So when they're able to see you coming from this perspective, then they are more in tune with what it is that you're trying to achieve from a cybersecurity perspective within the organization. So guys, this was indeed a very insightful um, series for me in terms of actually taking that time, doing the necessary research. I mean, Colin and I sitting down, collaborating, working together through this process. I mean, always looking forward each week to engage with you. I mean, this would not have been possible without you actually supporting and, I mean, engaging with us. And for sure, we definitely ask that you will share these resources with your network in terms of building this community of cybersecurity and GRC professionals. Colin, I mean, what's your final words or take on this series?
Uh, yeah, it's been a great journey, Richie. To be very honest with you, it's been a great journey. I myself have learned from different conversations that we have, from different comments, and I think that it has also enforced my learning process to also learn more that cyberspace is changing, things are evolving, that we also need to move with the trend. But most importantly, is that this final phase on how we are able to tie together all that we have talked about from the beginning. I see that all the topics that we have talked about initially kind of ties down to at least one or two of these processes that we have that CISA is proposing. We've been able to teach people how to calculate or how to use different methods, implementing or with the knowledge of those methodologies, they are able now to build a business case running through an entire process. So it shows that the knowledge that we have been able to pass and get ourselves would be very relevant in our day-to-day activity. Don't forget that what we're trying to bridge is a gap where we as technical people fail to have the knowledge to communicate the relevance or importance of the security tools or systems or measures that we're trying to propose. And we believe that with this series, we have been able to lay a foundation that all the viewers can be able to build upon to get themselves acquainted with the right knowledge to be able to sell these tools. Because it's time that you understand that this top management don't care to know what your vulnerability management tool is. They don't want to know how it works. Rather, they are concerned about how much am I spending and how much am I saving. And now, with this knowledge, we believe that you can be able to sell the case. You are spending $2 and you're saving $5, because if we fall victim for this breach, it's going to cost us $5. And you, as a manager or as management, as executive leadership team, you will not want that to happen, because when that happens, investors will pull out. So there's a ripple effect. So the idea now is that you now know how to build a case, leveraging on all the knowledge that you have to be able to succeed in your career. No, it's do no longer see yourself as the technical guy, but see yourself as a business owner who is cyber inclined. I don't know if that kind of
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly.
That is the goal. That is the goal, Richie. So I think that will be all from my end.
Yeah, sure. Definitely, it was indeed a experience, and we guys, we look forward to more in the series. Um, as I mentioned before, feel free to reach out to us if it is that you want to collaborate with our team to share your necessary input to make this thing go into something quite impactful, so that many other persons can actually benefit from this initiative that we're actually trying to push forward. So, guys, I mean, that's it from us. I mean, the Cyber Finance GRC series. So, see you in the near future. Have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are.